attached and doesn't value many things, it doesn't mean she's the kind of woman who can be touched at will. On the contrary, she is actually much more demanding and selective than other girls when it comes to choosing partners for intimate relationships. Even the most ordinary hug, which they had shared for so long, was something Winnie had never done. As for more intimate behavior, although she was well-read and knowledgeable about many things, she never imagined that she would one day engage in such behavior with someone. Until I met this man. Despite her initial wariness and aversion towards him, she couldn't resist his relentless day-and-night erosion, which gradually lowered her standards. When she came to her senses, even if he undressed her and touched her inappropriately, she would not resist. Unbeknownst to them, the two were just one step away from stepping into the legendary ultimate realm. Ivaisa felt dazed. She never imagined she would become like this, but when she asked herself what exactly had changed, she felt puzzled. Have I changed? It seems not. She is still the same person, with the same temper and the same personality. It's just that external factors have caused some changes in her mindset, but this is unavoidable and understandable. And then there's him. This guy always made her grit her teeth and rage until her liver ached, but she just couldn't do anything about him. He's like a piece of chewy, unbreakable taffy. Once he's stuck to you, you can never get rid of him. Until recently, she still thought so. But when faced with the choice he presented her, she felt inexplicably afraid. What frightened her more than the fear itself was that she was actually afraid. She was afraid he would leave her. After thinking about it in her room for a while, she easily figured out the reason. It's very simple. While she was being clung to by him, she was also clinging to him. It's such a simple and easy-to-understand principle. So she immediately chased after him and found him slumped over in a corner not far away. At that moment, all the doubts, resentments, and suspicions that had been building up in her heart for so long vanished. She felt more at peace than ever before, and her heart was incredibly tender. Even someone as learned as her couldn't understand what this feeling was. She couldn't help but walk over and hug him. She didn't remember what happened next very clearly. When she regained full consciousness, it was now. Now, the two gazed at each other silently. Ivaisa silently gazed into those eyes. His eyes were still the same, pitch black and unfathomable, hiding many things within them that no one could see. Even now, so close, she couldn't make out what was inside them at all. The things that occasionally surfaced in those eyes seemed both real and unreal, like a dream or an illusion. In the past, they would only make her wary, but now she sometimes couldn't help but become captivated by them. She really has changed. She couldn't deny it. Perseus was also looking into Ivaisa's eyes, admiring her with satisfaction. Her beautiful violet eyes were tinged black by the dimness of the room, but the darker the surroundings, the brighter her eyes shone like jewels. At this moment, her eyes were no longer as frozen as usual, cold and aloof as her face, so unapproachable that even a passionate man like him could only look away. At this moment, her eyes were like water, like lake water under the night sky, warm and clear, shining with a clear glow even on a night without stars or moon. Now, his face is reflected in those eyes. Just being watched by her quietly like that filled him with excitement and boundless energy. He suddenly changed his mind and no longer wanted to pretend to ask for her opinion. He just wanted to keep kissing until he was exhausted. In Ivaisa's eyes, the fire in the man's eyes was shining and growing brighter and brighter. So, it seems I couldn't escape it after all. She didn't sigh, but just breathed normally because she knew that in another second or two, she didn't know when she would be able to breathe like that again. "Baby," Perseus whispered, slowly approaching. Ivaisa closed her eyes. Perhaps tonight, they will impulsively cross that final line. She still can't imagine what she will become then, nor does she want to think about it. All she knew was that she no longer felt any resistance towards him. Is it just such a domineering and forceful deep kiss? It doesn't matter at all. At the last moment, Ivaisa opened her eyes and gently pressed her hand against his lips. Perseus blinked. "Will you be able to have a normal breakfast tomorrow morning?" Ivaisa asked earnestly. "You could have eaten normally." Perseus grabbed her hand forcefully, pressed it onto the bed, and continued. Ivaisa closed her eyes again, a slight, almost imperceptible smile playing on her lips. "Perseus, something terrible has happened. Come out right now." A panic scream came from outside the door. She was still banging on it frantically. Ivaisa opened her eyes and met Perseus's gaze. Both of them sighed silently. She had better have something really important to say. Perseus smiled. "No matter what, don't let anyone die," Ivaisa said calmly. "I'll try my best." Perseus kissed her lips again before reluctantly leaving her. Fortunately, both of their clothes were intact. He had been so focused on expressing his love that he hadn't thought of anything else. After tidying up a bit, Perseus opened the door and saw Winnie standing outside, her face deathly pale. "What is it?" Perseus asked politely. "Someone's coming." "Who?" Perseus frowned slightly. "You'll find out once you come with me." Winnie tried her best to smile. Ivisa also came over. Perseus looked at her, then at Winnie, and nodded helplessly. The three of them went downstairs and arrived at the main entrance. "Honey, I miss you so much." As soon as Perseus appeared, the person Winnie had mentioned leaped up and clung to him, giving him a breathtakingly passionate kiss in front of everyone. Everything was within Perseus's expectations, only a little faster than he had imagined. Helen's voice. Chapter 183 Gathering. "Honey, it's been so long since we last met. Have you missed me?" After the deep kiss ended, Helen was still clinging to Perseus, her arms around his neck, and asked with a grin. "Of course I want to." Perseus smiled. "How much do you want to?" "Think as much as you want." "Oof. You're definitely lying, aren't you?" Helen glanced to both sides, pouting. "There are so many beautiful older sisters here. How could you possibly think about me? You'll see how much I miss you tonight." Perseus leaned close to Helen's ear and whispered. "How annoying," Helen said shyly, but her big eyes were full of charm. Perseus took a deep breath and forcefully suppressed the burgeoning evil thoughts. He hadn't really thought much about Helene, but the moment he saw her pretty and lovely face and touched her soft and beautiful body, his consciousness immediately returned to those blissful moments on the rooftop and at her home. He suddenly realized that he had only been deceiving himself. He missed her terribly. However, now is not the time. "The doorway isn't the place to talk," Perseus smiled. "Ms. Winnie, why don't you go help Miss Lovia and the others with their luggage?" "Me?" Winnie's eyes widened in disbelief. She was a pampered young lady at home, never having to lift a finger. How could she possibly work as someone else's handbag carrier? Perseus's smile deepened. "All right." Winnie sighed helplessly and walked over. "As far as I know, this is Count Murphy's residence, right? Why are you acting like the master of the house?" Lovia said expressionlessly. She didn't stop Winnie from carrying her bag. "Miss Lovia, you misunderstand. Of course I am a guest as well," Perseus said with an exceptionally warm smile. "It's just that I have a very good relationship with the Earl, and I would be more than happy to entertain such a distinguished guest as you on his behalf and make sure you are not neglected." Then you can arrange it however you like," Lovia said, lifting her long legs as she walked into the house. "Anyway, I want a room all by myself, and you can have whatever you want with that woman on you." "Cousin, how could you be so heartless and cruel?" Helen exclaimed angrily. "How could you just throw your lovely little cousin to another man to be played with like this? You can share a room with me, but you're not allowed to go anywhere at night, and you're not allowed to bring anyone with you." "Then forget it," Helen said decisively. Count Murphy's mansion was large and spacious because his family lived in another city not far away, which was also his fiefdom. Only he and his confidants lived here, and they were in charge of managing the local properties. Lovia and Helen's rooms were left to the butler and maids, but he himself was also present to ensure that everything was taken care of and nothing was missing. Then, it was time for dinner. The Count sent word that he would be back very late, and that they could eat first. The atmosphere at the dinner table wasn't very lively. Only two people were talking, Helen and Perseus. To take care of her cousin, Helen had to sit separately from Perseus at the table. But even though they were a distance apart, it did not affect Helen's tenderness and affection for her lover, and she openly sent him flirtatious glances. Perseus was very cooperative, and he also realized that he had indeed neglected Helen during this period. Although they were separated by distance, there was nothing he could do about it, but because it was her, he had to be on tenterhooks. Hopefully, tonight will pass, and Miss Helen will forgive him for what he did. He will try his best to express his sincerity and love. Darling, I suddenly noticed there are two unfamiliar faces around you," Helen suddenly said. Carol, who had intended to eat quietly and minimize her presence, couldn't help but cough upon hearing this. Mimi ate happily, paying no attention to Helen's voice. Helen admired their beautiful faces with great interest. "This is Miss Carol," Perseus said calmly. "She is also my woman." Carol lowered her head shyly and sweetly. She had thought that in front of Helen, her official girlfriend with a noble status, Perseus would say that he and she were just ordinary friends. The fact that she dared to confront the situation publicly shows that she hadn't entrusted herself to the wrong person. Tisk, Lovia frowned. Cousin, does your tooth hurt? Helen asked with a smile. Lovia glared at her fiercely, then looked coldly at Carol. Carol was terrified by the stare and dared not breathe. She had just heard Perseus address Lovia by her name. Duchess. Such an important person was from a completely different world from her. The powerful and noble aura he possessed and his unparalleled beauty made her feel inferior. Carol and I met by chance, and we have a very good relationship. I consider her a woman I can trust. Perseus left his seat, walked to Carol's side, and took her hand. Darling, you don't mind, do you? Of course I don't mind. What can I do when I love you so much? Helen smiled naturally. Carol did not lower her guard because of this. On the contrary, she felt that the other party was a powerful opponent who did not show his emotions. She was all too familiar with this feeling of smiling while hiding a knife. Don't be nervous. She's very easy to talk to, Perseus whispered in her ear. If you're polite to her, she'll be even more polite to you. Carol looked at him blankly. How many women do you have? Almost everything is here. Almost. Don't worry about the details. Just eat well. We can talk about it when we meet in person. Perseus gently kissed the back of her hand and returned to his place. And this one? Helen looked at Mimi, who was engrossed in her work. Mimi, here. Mimi stood up instantly, her eyes wide, her face serious, with sauce still on her lips. Wow, what an adorable girl, Helen exclaimed, her eyes sparkling. Honey, where did you get her? Bought. Tisk. Perseus smiled calmly. Although Mimi was indeed bought from the slave market, I treat her like my own sister. Please don't misunderstand. Ah. Lovia sneered disdainfully. Helen Eanes said thoughtfully, such an innocent and lovely girl. If you could bring yourself to do it, I would have reported you to the military police and had you arrested. Luckily you didn't. Perseus silently walked over, took a napkin, and wiped the sauce off Mimi's mouth. Mimi laughed happily. Keep eating, it's all right now. Perseus patted her head. Uh-huh. Ms. Winnie, what are you doing here? Helen asked again, looking puzzled. Uh-huh. Winnie visibly guilty. I'm here on vacation. Yes, on vacation. Have you been happy during this time? I'm really happy. That's good, Helen said casually. I was worried that my boyfriend wouldn't be able to entertain me properly. He's very good to me. What about at night? Occasionally. Perseus glanced over. I didn't say anything. Wah. Winnie sped up her eating. It seems everyone is doing quite well, Helen said with a smile, looking around at everyone. Helen, let's find somewhere else to stay. Lovia put down her knife and fork, her face cold. I can't accept living under the same roof as some filthy lewd guy. Hey, did I do something to you? Winnie exploded. I was just carrying your luggage. Who said that about you? Lovia frowned. You said, This time, Perseus covered her mouth with bread. Cousin, I advise you to wait patiently before making a decision, Helen said. Wait for what? We can't wait even a moment longer. Lovia suddenly stood up. Your Highness the Prince, please. Count Murphy's voice came through. Lovia silently sat back down. Chapter 184 Appeasement. Count Murphy led Zog and Andre into the restaurant. Everyone stood up as a sign of respect for the host. Count Murphyat was somewhat surprised by the appearance of Helen and Lovia. He had been to the capital and knew who these two were, but his gaze subconsciously turned to Perseus. Perseus smiled slightly, leaving the meaning to the Earl himself. Andre noticed Ivisa was there almost immediately, and his heart skipped a beat. If it weren't for his uncle's authority, he would have rushed over long ago. As for Lovia, Helen, and the rest of the people, they were not within his scope of attention. From the moment Andre appeared, Lovia's gaze was fixed on him, but he only glanced at her casually and then looked away, his eyes dimming slightly. Helen watched this unfold, a slight smile playing on her lips. Zog also stared at Ivisa, his gaze carrying a completely different meaning than that of Andre. Please sit down, he announced after a moment, speaking on behalf of Count Murphyat. Then everyone sat down again. Give the order to the kitchen immediately, Count Murphyat said to the butler who approached him. Zog